a Utah Jazz player in the groin while he was running by. And then he did it again with Chris Kaman, only to have Chris Kaman get up and shove him to the ground, and Chris Kaman gets a flagrant foul. Coincidence that all these things happen with Chris Paul? Probably not. I don't know why he would insist on wanting to punch guys in the nuts. I don't think Chris Paul's a dirty player. I don't have anything against Chris Paul, but I find it hilarious, and I wouldn't mind seeing a little bit more of this from Chris Paul. But now he can't do it. That's the thing. Now he's done this enough that it's done for him. Anytime anything like this similar happens, I mean, he's probably going to get suspended and fined. It's looking like for this result, which he deserves. But just the idea that you have a guy in the NBA, a star player, a face of the league, running around hitting guys in the junk is hilarious. Other news, like the last episode, we talked about the UFC results, and we talked about Holly Holm losing to Miesha Tate. Now this week, Dana White came out, and he said that he doesn't think Holly Holmes really realizes what she lost in that fight. Besides the belt, the big payday with Holly Holm coming up, or with Ronda Rousey and the rematch. He blamed this all on Lenny Fresquez, who is Holly's promoter. And if you remember a couple years ago when the UFC was originally trying to get Holly to come fight, Lenny Fresquez really fought like a hard-nosed negotiation with Dana White and said, no, we want, I think it was $2 million up front Holly wanted from the UFC. And Dana White kind of scoffed at that and said, whatever, we're the UFC, we don't need you. Now things ended up changing and Holly ended up getting brought in because they wanted her to be, the real contender to beat Ronda Rousey, which ended up happening. And then there was the big argument after. I think this was like less than a week after she beat Ronda Rousey, where Holly was just like, no, I'm not going to wait till UFC 200. I'm going to fight. I want to fight before that. I'm going to fight somebody. And I think she named Miesha Tate, and she named Cyborg as well. Like, hey, let me fight these girls. I want to be a fighting champion. That's what I do and fight. She's used to fighting every 3 months or so with her boxing career. And Dana White wanted nothing to do with that because he saw a huge payday for him. And then Ronda Rousey goes and drops off of UFC 200. She drops out of the fight, the rematch. And then this match gets put together that happened last Saturday between Miesha Tate and Holly Holm. And Holly Holm was, a minute and 50 seconds away from winning that match before she gets tapped out. I think this is just pure arrogance from Dana White to come out and suggest that this is Holly and her promoter's fault. When, if Holly was then just going to sit around and wait for Ronda Rousey, when's Ronda Rousey going to fight again? Is Ronda Rousey even going to want to fight Holly in a rematch? Is she going to want to step back in the ring with a woman who's destroyed her soul, her mind, and her body? She literally destroyed Ronda Rousey's reason to live. She hasn't even made it back in the gym yet to start training. And it's already mid-March, and that fight happened mid-November. We'd be looking at Holly Holm not fighting again till November or December. She would almost have to sit out a year just waiting for this rematch. And I don't know I guess that's what Dana White wanted from her. I'm guessing in his mind the money is more important than the pride and, not making complete laughingstock of the belt. And he would have wanted her to sit out a year and not fight until Ronda was ready, because Ronda's his BFF. And if Ronda says jump, I guess Dana White's going to ask how high or how long do you want to just sit out, which is completely ridiculous. And listening to other UFC fighters say, yeah, he plays favorites. Yeah, he doesn't. I heard on the Fighter and Kid podcast, which is a really good podcast that you should subscribe to if you don't. But they brought up the fact that they felt that they mismanaged Conor McGregor's career. And having him take this fight against Diaz when there was such a low upside and such, a huge downside to it. And the downside happened, and now the Conor McGregor we saw before, the big crazy man, the antics, he's lost now, and he's not going to be looked at the same way, and that's going to kind of put a damper on his career. I think McGregor will be back, and I think ultimately that loss is going to be good for him. But Brandon Schaub said, I think Dana White mishandled him. I don't think Dana White is particularly good at managing people's career. And I haven't heard them talk yet about, the idea that Dana once wanted Holly to just sit out and just wait and wait and wait until whenever Ronda decided she was ready to fight again. What if Ronda doesn't want to fight again? What if, the whole acting thing is going so good and she looks over at Holly and she says, no, Holly, she goes, I don't have a chance of beating Holly. And I think, especially too, with the way she may have lost her confidence, the way she got beat that first time, she may never have a chance at beating Holly. She's probably never going to be the fighter she was before this. I don't think the exact opposite of the McGregor thing. I think McGregor is going to return a better fighter after all this. I think Ronda is never going to be close to what she was. Now maybe she surprises us all and she comes back bigger and stronger than ever. But I don't see it. I mean, especially her comments coming out since the fight, I don't see that happening. And I could see Miesha Tate and Holly Holm fighting again, in that match being just as good as the first one is, and maybe this being a best of 3 thing between the two of them. We'll see what happens on that, but I just think Dana White's a complete tool, and arrogant comments like he made about Lenny Fresquez and Holly Holm just shows that he doesn't know how to separate his personal feelings from business. Also, Brock Osweiler's contract with the Texans reportedly being worth $75 million. I think this is going to be a major, major nightmare for the Texans. Now, I know the people in charge right now of the Texans, after Hoyer fell apart in the playoffs, you have to do something. It doesn't look like there's going to be many quarterbacks out there to pick up, and I think they had to jump on Osweiler, and it had to be big enough of a contract that it took him away from re-signing with the team he just won the Super Bowl with. That being said, I don't think he's going to be what puts them over the top. Now, I did just see that they picked up Lamar Miller. So the Houston Texans are trying. I mean, they ended up making it to the playoffs this year. I mean, who knows what's going to happen in Indy? That team's, even though they have one of the best quarterbacks alive, that team just looks like it's a mess, and the whole mess between Chuck Pagano and the front office looks like it could only get worse. And, the aging players they picked up Andre Johnson and Frank Gore, and it looks, Johnson's been cut. Gore doesn't look like he's himself anymore. So you could make a case that the Texans they're trying to go for it right now, and they see the window opening to win that division and make the playoffs again and maybe make a run at it. They've got J.J. Watt. Why waste one of the best defensive players we've ever seen in the NFL? Why waste some of his best years by not putting a good team around him? I don't think Osweiler is going to work out there, but I can't blame them for making the move, because I think it's something that they have to do. Thank you guys for tuning in. That's all I got for this episode. Tuesday, March 15th, we will be back with the big winner-take-all primary results. So tune in. If you listen to it, feel free to spread word around. And thank you very much. God bless America.